So I was asked by somebody on Twitter to do a video on systems respecting each other and people who aren't systems even respecting systems. Um, this is a pretty big topic, so I'm gonna try to be thorough but brief. But like, I dissociate a lot and I talk too much, so this might be a long video. We'll see how that goes. So obviously, there's no like set way to respect every single human being. I mean, the basics are the basic, proper name, proper pronouns, treat them like they're a human being, because that's just the way we should treat people. We should treat people like they're human beings. Um, don't send death threats, don't threaten people in general, don't like hash up stuff that they don't want to talk about, that sort of stuff. That's pretty like basic stuff. But let's get a little more specific. Um, so the example I'm going to use is my own because I used to have a real problem with respect and boundaries of my own. So, as an example, my personal experience, when we were both pre-discovery and in the middle of understanding our system, we're still not quite fully there, but we've got like a lot to work with now. But in the beginning, we had a lot of issues with one of our anger holders, Rosie. She, at the time, she genuinely could not control her temper. If she was pulled out to protect, because that's what she do, she's an anger holder and protector. And if she was pulled out to do something for us, she typically will go at it with anger. That's just how she does things. She will typically go at it with anger. And obviously, it's not healthy to engage with people when you're in a terrible mood. It's not healthy to try and continue a conversation when you're in a bad mood. Um, I could put 3, 10, 20, 600 different ways to respect a person. But like, I mean, it really comes down to paying attention. And I understand that a lot of us have dissociative episodes. A lot of us have alters who can be rude, can be cruel even, verbally and physically to other people. There are, that's been a problem for us. But that doesn't give us an excuse to just go around being a dick and blaming it on our one alter. So a long while back, we had joined a server, and we were not very aware of the tone that we took with people sometimes. When something was frustrating us, or we just didn't like the way somebody was going about something, or someone else's tone we interpreted incorrectly and just got mad about it, or, we were trying to explain our own point, and for some reason, when we're trying to explain our point, when people come back at us with, well, but this, that used to set us off a lot. And especially when we were much younger. Before we had any clue what was going on with us, we did have a long history of defensiveness and even gaslighting unintentionally because we didn't remember stuff. So we would gaslight other people because we didn't remember things clearly. Like, no, that didn't happen. Or if we did remember something, we would insist that the way we remembered it was correct, even if it was very, very far from correct. And in the first few servers that sort of thing happened, we just got kicked. We were kicked from a couple of servers. We ended up blowing up at an entire server and leaving and losing tons of friends that way. And we eventually also got banned from a proxy bot server for the same thing. Attitude, rudeness, all that. But we couldn't see it in the way that we didn't recognize our own tone. We didn't understand that the way we said things was often interpreted as very hostile. Rosie's kind of got just a hostile streak about her. Sometimes it's not that bad, especially if she's fronting with one of our littles. But, sometimes she's just in a bad mood. And when that happens, it is our responsibility as a system to, one, alert people so they know that, like, hey, this is, I'm fronting, I'm in a shitty mood, please leave me alone. we make a point to state wherever we can we have temper issues. We usually have control over them now, but we still have temper issues, and sometimes we can get out of hand very, very quickly. Which is why I'm always, always, always proactive about people blocking me. Honestly, people blocking me, people muting me. It hurts. It makes me upset, but I don't get to I don't get to just say whatever I want and upset people and demand that they stick around and listen to me whenever I'm in a bad mood. Um, so in that last server that I got kicked from, I had said some things that were very, very rude. And then the last thing I had said before I got moved to like a timeout room sort of thing to talk it over with the mods, was basically one of those, how did I put it? If you don't understand how this works, then that's something it's not, it was just like really childish shit like that. Kind of narcissistic in a sense, but I do have NPD traits, so like at the time, okay. Sort of a, my opinion matters more, I don't understand why people aren't listening to me kind of attitude. It's hard to let go of, but we're working on it. But, as I was saying, I was pulled aside by one of the moderators, and they chatted to me about the issues that I was having. That was when we came out and realized that we didn't know how to apologize correctly. We had to learn how to apologize after this experience, because we tried to apologize, but we ended up just guilt tripping and, basically like, oh, woe is me, I'm such a bad person. Not an apology, just a lot of guilt tripping. But we didn't realize that's what we were doing. And that's where I'm going with this. We didn't realize what we were doing. We didn't recognize our tone. We didn't even recognize our own mood most of the time. But in that situation, someone took us aside and said, hey, I need you to understand that what you're doing isn't okay. And if you can't stop doing it, you need to leave. It's that simple. And that's exactly where I'm going with this, yeah. Trauma survivors, whether they have DID or not, I would especially point out folks with BPD, borderline personality disorder, or just anybody who experiences that kind of unbridled, uncontainable anger. And, when the part of you that's just pissed off comes out, you're in a bad mood, you're being rude, all that stuff. Sometimes when you get to that point where you're so upset that you can't stop being rude, you can't stop saying rude things, that is the point where it becomes everybody else's job to look after themselves. And it becomes your job to not take offense to that. If you're talking shit or saying things and it's upsetting people and they tell you it's upsetting them, and your response is to get defensive and upset and be like, well, I didn't mean it that way, blah, 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 these are two separate problems. There is people who are reacting to what you're saying, and then there's the stuff that you're saying. You are responsible for the stuff that you say. Whether it's you or another alter, you all share the same mind, the same body. Therefore, you all have to take responsibility for that. You all have to make the effort to be respectful to other people if you're going to expect other people to be respectful to you. And on the other point, if people are upset by the things that you say, or if you're upset by the things people say, it is their job to disengage. And that right there is literally what I would consider the baseline for respecting somebody with a trauma disorder like that. Because when we get to that place, we can't always control it. We can't calm down in the amount of time that would be expected of us. Sometimes we can't just disengage. So if you, I'm talking to the general you now, if you are experiencing a conversation with someone and they're getting meaner or ruder, they're being hostile, they're being aggressive, you don't need to call them out like that. Like, you really don't need to say anything, to be honest. Like, in my personal opinion, if somebody's imploding because of their own emotions, that is exactly when it would be respectful for everybody else to walk away. And I know that like Twitter and YouTube and Tumblr and all those places are like drama, but if you're in a community of people with a disorder and someone's triggered, someone's having a stress response, someone's getting aggressive because of that stress response, you have to disengage, because at that point you can't rely on that other person to remain respectful. You can't rely on them to remain clear-headed and calm in a conversation. And asking somebody who is in that state to be calm and clear-headed is like rubbing salt in a wound. Because when I'm going to use borderline personality disorder as an example, because I've been diagnosed with that and it fits a lot of my issues. When I get to the point where I am so enraged that I can't think straight, having someone tell me to calm down is like a slap in the face, because I can't. I can't. It's at least not in that moment. Being told to go cope or something, being told to, just calm yourself down, think about something else, that's not going to help. The only thing that's going to help in that situation is for the people who are talking to me to block or mute me, to walk away from the conversation, to refuse to respond. And that's one thing you can do to respect people around you with mental illnesses. If they're having an episode and they're becoming hostile and aggressive, not necessarily a danger to anyone, but just mean, and it seems really unnecessary, and you're like, why are they so mad? What's going on? Don't mention it. Don't beat them over the head with it. They know that they're upset. We know when this happens. We know when we're so upset we can't contain our thoughts. We know. We fucking know. And a respectful way to handle it is for you to step back so that we can step back. Do you understand? Does that make sense? If your 2-year-old is throwing a tantrum, this is kind of a sad example because I know nobody likes to be infantilized. Yeah. But a lot of emotional instability stems from when you were 2 or 3 or 4, you weren't given appropriate boundaries. So you learned to explode to get what you needed, basically. And that comes out in a lot of different ways, but I don't want to get into that in this video. But when a 2-year-old is having a tantrum, if they're just crying and screaming around, you can offer them a hug, you can offer them attention. But if they don't want that, if they're in a state where they just need to scream and cry and be like that, you have to let them be like that. You have to let them experience that and calm down from that before trying to get any other reaction out of them. If your toddler's throwing a tantrum, you can't just yell at them to stop throwing a tantrum. That's not going to work. It just won't, unless they're terrified of you already, which would be bad. And the same goes for emotional dysregulation. If you're experiencing severe lows, yeah, maybe your coping skills will help, but what will help even more is to stop talking to people. Just not completely, but stop arguing with people. End the argument. Walk away. Step back. And if the other person is in that state and they can't step back, then it becomes your job to step back. And it's respectful. That's how you do it. It's respect, man. You don't rag on a community of trauma survivors who most or all of us have some kind of emotional dysregulation. You don't badger us for getting pissed off and being particularly mean about something. That, excuse me? Turn the camera a little bit. There we go. This is actually turning out to be a lot harder to get out than I thought. So, respect is a two-way street. It always is. But, and that's a big but, sometimes only one person can be respectful in a moment. And if you are the person who is able to remain respectful in that moment, you need to walk away. Period. Don't come back to see if they responded. Don't try to egg them on more. Don't like check in with them and be like, hey, are you still mad? Do you want to continue that conversation? No. If that conversation got to them like that in the first place, don't bring it up again. Just don't. Just don't. It's not necessary. And this also goes for like endogenic systems, as they call themselves. If you're talking about something to someone or in some place and they've gotten to a point where they clearly don't want to have a conversation anymore, where the debate is over, now you're just like being rude about your opinions, that's the end of the conversation, dude. Like, once somebody gets to that point of hostility, the conversation is already over. It's not going to go anywhere. You're not going to change any minds. Just walk away. If you have the ability to remain respectful, the most respectful thing you can do is not keep pushing someone when they're already past that point. I remember being in elementary school and just things happen. Like, I would get overstimulated in class for a variety of reasons. And when I would start getting hostile, the immediate response from the teachers was always, you shouldn't say that. That's rude. And obviously that didn't help. That just set me off more. And it's the same now. So if I'm at a point where I am so angry I can't be nice anymore, I can't be civil, I can't avoid, calling people names, the conversation is over. That's it. It's done. It's over. I think that is probably the most important layer of respect that you can offer fellow trauma survivors, whether you're a trauma survivor or not. When you see people getting upset, just drop it. Drop it like a hot potato. Okay? Please. Like, there is so much pain in the community that could be so easily avoided if people were more willing to just walk away from conversations. Like, you don't need to just keep listing all the things that's wrong with someone's argument. You don't need to, get into a 6-day debate with them, keep bringing them back to the comment thread just so you can trash on them. It's not necessary in either direction. If you are at that point, you need to learn to be mindful of that. You need to learn to recognize, I don't think I can stay calm and collected. I think that I'm going to start getting mean if I keep talking to people. Therefore, I am ending this conversation. I am muting this thread. I am blocking this person. Whatever you need to do. That is where your responsibility comes in as the person who is unable to control themselves at that point. It took a really long time for us to work with Rosie to the point where she's able to see that in herself and walk away. It's taken a really long time to get to the point where we internally can tell Rosie, hey, you're getting a little upset. Do you want to switch out? Do you maybe we should just end this conversation and do something else? Let's watch something. That is your responsibility. You need to be mindful of where you are at during a conversation emotionally. And yeah, it's both ways. You can't keep pushing somebody into a conversation they don't want to have. And you can't keep dragging somebody back to a conversation so that you can be mean to them. Don't do that. If you're angry, walk away. If they're angry, walk away. I promise you that nothing's going to happen. Like, no matter what side of system discourse you're on, if you walk away from a conversation, it doesn't matter. Like, who cares if they think that they won the argument? They haven't changed your mind. And if they have changed your mind, maybe that's not a bad thing. It's something to think about over time. But don't push it. Don't do that to yourself. You don't need to get yourself angry and then keep yourself angry. Don't do that. Respect yourself in that sense. Respect yourself enough to recognize when you are triggered and when you should genuinely disengage. Because triggers aren't always in the form of a panic attack or a crying spell or a breakdown. A lot of times, triggers come out in the form of anger. Your protectors come forward. Your protective not personality, but like, when an anger is a defensive emotion. When you're getting angry, it's because somebody has crossed your boundaries. And regardless of whether your boundaries are reasonable or not, they're your boundaries. You have to keep that line in the sand. And when somebody crosses your boundaries, you don't need to react with anger. When somebody crosses your boundaries, you don't need to forcibly push them out of your life. You can just walk away. You can block them. You can mute them. You can disregard them from the rest of your life. I mean, especially on Twitter, like, right? I feel like that became a huge portion of the video already. Yeah, we're at 20 minutes. Smooth. I've been repeating myself for the past 20 minutes. So one more rundown. If you're angry during a debate or an argument, stop and walk away. Disengage entirely. Don't come back to the conversation. Don't try to bring the other person back to the conversation. Just drop it. Okay. Second thing you can do to respect people with DID. Ask us. Ask us what we can do. Ask us what you can do to respect us. Ask us what we need from you. Ask us if there's things that we particularly don't want to talk about. If there's questions we absolutely don't want to answer. Like, I'm a very open person. Like, possibly in an unhealthy way. Oof. And I will talk about almost anything that people ask me about. But that's because I'm like that. Not everybody's like that. Even if they're your best friend, some people just don't want to talk about certain things, and that is their boundary, and you should not cross it. Simple as that. So that's number 2. Respect the boundaries that you are given, not the ones that you are suggested online or in videos or whatever. Ask. Ask. Please just ask. Not everybody likes to use we, us pronouns. Not everybody likes to use the same pronouns between all system members. Some people don't like to tell you when they switch. Some people don't want you to address them differently when they switch. A lot of it comes down to paying attention to the moment, but also talking to the person. Like, if you really want to be friends with somebody who has DID or OSDD or another trauma disorder, ask the person how they want you to address them, how they want you to treat them, if there's anything specific that you want them to do in a certain situation. Some people might literally say, you know, if a certain alter starts fronting, I need you to stop talking to me and I need you to leave. Like, I personally am not totally comfortable with our littles being out when we have, you know, outsider company in the house. It feels like we're being judged, and it feels... I just don't want any of our littles to get hurt or upset because, you know, somebody got weirded out by the way we were behaving as a 26-year-old adult, or the way we were talking as a 26-year-old adult, or, you know, the things we say to our partner when we're, you know, when there's a little in the front. We behave very differently when there's a little in the front, obviously. And I'm not totally comfortable having littles around our company anymore because it doesn't feel safe to them. It doesn't feel safe for me, for them. So the most important thing is to talk to the person. Just talk to them. We all have language skills. Let's use them, huh? What's a third thing? I don't even know if I can think of a third thing. Like, honestly, like, I was almost confused by how to go about doing this video because, like, to me, all of this stuff is, like, obvious. Be considerate, be compassionate, avoid being rude if you can, and if you can't avoid being rude, you need to back off, just physically, entirely. I don't even know what else to say. That's kind of why I stopped paying so much attention to alternative system. The ginger girl, you know, whatever her name is now, ginger alternative vlogs, damsel distress, whatever you want to call herself. That's why we stopped talking around. That's why we stopped watching their videos. That's why we stopped paying attention to the drama. It's because we can tell that she's at a point where she can't remain level-headed. She physically can't. She can't be level-headed. She can't be polite. She can't be sweet, or not sweet. She can't be kind and, like, polite and mannerly during a conversation about the things that she's been on about for the past few months. Therefore, we just disengage from it entirely. Like, we blocked her on Twitter. We I don't think you can block people on YouTube, but we made a point to just avoid her videos. We don't like really follow the drama anymore. We're just like, clearly this is a person who is in distress. Nothing that they say is actually true, nor will it have an actual effect on my real life. Therefore, it's whatever, man. Like, it's unfortunate that she has such a large following and that she's getting all the attention she is. But I mean, she's getting attention for the exact same reason that Trisha Paytas gets attention. Because she's out there and she's loud and her anger is very visceral, and like, people find that shit, I don't want to use the word intoxicating because that's not quite the right word, but like, people are drawn to the drama. People are drawn to that big energy that, like, you know, I'm so mad. All these things are happening. It's so like, she's just in a state. She can't come back from it, where she cannot come back from where she is right now with the aid of the internet. It's just not going to happen. I mean, it's the same with a lot of creators. Like, you can't just keep engaging in the same topics with the same creators over and over and over again, expecting them to eventually change their mind about shit. They're not going to. They're in a state of prolonged rage. I would call it when I was in those kinds of states, I called those long-term crises, because I didn't go to the hospital for them, but I was an emotional freaking wreck from them. My nose is very itchy. I put on all this makeup and now it's making my nose itch. But at a certain point, you have to recognize, like, bringing this up to the public isn't helping. Bringing this up to the creator isn't helping. Bringing this back to the creator's fans, it's not going to change anything. At a certain point, you got to block and move on. You got to walk away. You got to be like, no, I'm not going to check out what so-and-so is saying about me. I don't care. I don't want to know. It's none of my business how they're doing. Fucking whatever. I've started seeing tweets about some of these things again, and I was like, are we really still even aware of her existence? Like, maybe I'm the weird one, but when I decide to stop engaging with someone, I really, really genuinely stop engaging with them. I always said that my ability to become completely indifferent to something was a superpower, and it kind of is. Not everybody can do it, but pushing that source of stress, pushing that person away when they're in that state and you can't do anything for them anyway, that's all you can do, and that's all you should do. If you see 14 to 16 to 17, 19-year-old systems on Twitter, you know, talking bullshit, misinforming the public, like, whatever. Like, honestly, people who do not have these disorders research them for fun. They go in the tags for entertainment. They watch the videos for entertainment. They watch for the drama. They watch for the emotional breakdowns. That's what they're there for. They don't give a fuck about DID. They don't give a fuck about OSDD. They don't fucking care about childhood trauma. They're not interested in personality disorders. They just want to see what the crazies are up to. And, like, obviously that's bad and fucked up, but also, like, what are you gonna fucking do? Most of the public don't believe that DID exists. Plenty of psychiatrists and psychologists don't believe it exists. And as sad as it may be to say, and as hard as it may be for some folks to hear, those threads on Twitter really aren't changing shit. Like, if the threads on Twitter were making a difference in how the public saw systems, we would probably be seeing different movies by now. We would probably be seeing a lot of things by now. But we're not. We're just seeing a lot of rehashed Twitter drama. And, like, what's the point? So basically, that's the best way you can respect systems and trauma survivors in your life. Talk to them. Leave them alone when they're, you know, triggered, stressed out, you know, they don't want to talk to people, they can't be nice, walk away. You can come back later, as in, like, 2 days later, maybe 3 days later, ask if they, you know, they're okay, and they, you know, whatever. But, like, don't re-engage with that shit. Don't drag it back to that point. Don't drag that person back to that point. Don't drag yourself back to that point. My laptop's being a bitch. It's unhealthy for everyone involved. So yeah. At this point, I've just been rambling for 30 minutes, so I guess I'll end this video with a quick show of my makeup, because I was really proud of how I did today. There's no natural light in here, obviously, but it's probably not the best thing you'll ever see. I'm not the greatest at makeup, certainly. I wouldn't even say I'm, like, even close to good at makeup. Not even close. But, you know, I wanted to do a face for this video, so I did. This is a 30.5-minute video. I need to shut the fuck up. Alright, this is Autumn signing off. I hope you guys are enjoying the very rare content that I occasionally pump out. Subscribe, give me a like. I'd appreciate it if you don't have to, but, like, you know, I feel like I should say it at this point. Alright, my hand's in front of the camera now. Okay.